Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Can you hear me? My name is Norma Moyo and I'll be taking you for SCM303. What I would like you to do is to know that we are going to start off from chapter 7 because chapters 1 to 6 were covered for your assignment. What I would like you to know is as you read and go through, ensure that you follow the outcomes. Make sure that you understand all the outcomes in each chapter. That's where basically we want everybody, that's the objectives, those are the outcomes where we want you to be able to understand, able to answer what will be in the outcomes. So our lesson, we start off, as I said, on chapter 7. We are going to talk about quality. Unit 7 is about quality. And quality management. When we look at Unit 7 and looking at quality, we have some outcomes there that you have to follow. The outcomes appear on page 97 of your learner guide. So let's look at what quality is and look at what the concept, quality concept in purchasing and supply is. It can be defined in 5 principal approaches. It's a transcendent quality is ideal, a condition of excellence. A product-based quality is based on a product attribute. What we mean is an attribute are the features. User-based quality is fitness for use. Manufacturing-based quality is conformance for requirements. Value-based quality is the degree of excellence at an acceptable price. A technical explanation of quality will reflect the inherent characteristics. That is, the design quality refers to specific characteristics of the product that determine its value in the marketplace. Conformance quality defines how well the product is met with respect to its design specifications. A business management explanation should reflect objectives of efficiency and effectiveness, which is optimization of value and costs. Well, let's look at supply management and internal service quality. What do we mean by internal service quality? We are looking at everybody within an organization looking at quality, prioritizing quality, focusing on quality. It is the focus on quality management programs in purchasing. Just as the focus is on the performance of external suppliers. Increased realization that the quality of service that internal suppliers who are purchasers provide to internal customers who are other functions like other departments is equally important. Supply chain management and internal service quality is more to do with you also providing your internal customers who are your employees with certain programs that give them incentives and that give them recognition. There is so much crucial importance that is, it impacts on an organization's ability to meet external customer needs. External customer is also an internal customer. Determine quality of products and services delivered to the external customer. It contributes to customer satisfaction. Buyers will be looking at the following characteristics from customer-oriented supplier. When we're talking about a customer-oriented supplier, we are talking about a customer-centric supplier, the one who puts the customer first. What the buyers will be looking at, the characteristics from a customer-oriented supplier are reliable quality assurance system, effective control of operations aimed at maintaining quality, built-in quality in day-to-day activities, continuous quality improvements, awareness of the quality policy within the company, international quality certifications. Let's look at the cost of quality. Dysfunctional quality is when focus is shifted from correction to prevention. Instead of you thinking of correcting, you think of preventing. Cost of preventing is lower than cost of correction. There are three categories of costs. We have what we call prevention costs, appraisal costs, and failure costs. Under failure costs, we have internal failure costs, and then we have external failure costs. Then let's look at what total quality management. This is where, the whole organization is centered around looking at quality. Everybody, every member of the organization concentrates on quality. It's the overall management policy. The main characteristics of total management quality can be summarized as follows. It is a management philosophy that permeates the whole organization and all participants in the chain. It has a continuous improvement as a cornerstone philosophy. All employees in the firm and employees of partners in the supply chain have quality responsibility. Team problem solving on a cross-functional and inter-organizational basis ensures that quality goals are shared and that relationships are established. Feedback on customer satisfaction as regards the quality and value of products and services. An important input on the quality is an important input on this quality, process. So there has to be a lot of feedback. Feedback is encouraged. The quality management systems, the basic elements of total quality system are commitment, coordination, personnel management, supplier management, quality information, and performance evaluation. Those are the elements of total quality management. Commitment, meaning that the people should be committed to quality and there should be a good coordination, and the management, the personnel should be managed well. Supplier management, quality information given, and performance evaluation. The impact of total quality management on purchasing and supply is customer focus, structured relationships, performance measurement, employee involvement, involvement in teamwork. Let's look at the 6 Sigma system of quality management. 6 Sigma is a system where there is continuous quality improvement throughout. This has a cycle, and the cycle starts off with the define, that is, you set the improvement goals. This one is sometimes referred to as DMIC, which is define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. So the first, when you are defining, you are setting the improvement goals. Number 2, you measure. You develop measuring instruments, measures, and determine the baseline. 3, analyze. When you are analyzing, you are using data to analyze and to determine reasons for possible deviations. Then 4, improve. On improving, you're talking about innovating, evaluate, Evaluate innovations, implement new processes. When you have implemented or improved, you control, which means you are monitoring. Introduce standardized procedure to ensure new process stability. So it is DMAIC, that is the Six Sigma. You define, you measure, you analyze, you improve, you control. Quality management systems continue. Then we have what we call the International Standards Organization. So an effective quality management system, that is, will ensure that the following two requirements are met. The customer's requirements, meeting the need and expectations of a customer, the organization's requirements, and optimum cost with the efficient use of all resources. The International Standards Organization continued. We look at the quality management systems principles. Quality management systems principles are customer focus, leadership, involvement of people, process approach, systems approach, continual improvement, factual approach to decision making, and mutually beneficial supplier relations. I say it, the quality management systems are customer focus, leadership, involvement of people, process approach, systems approach, continual improvement, factual approach to decision making, mutually beneficial supplier relations. Standardization as an aid for quality decisions. What do we mean by standardization? It is defined as the formally accepted uniform inherent characteristics of items in terms of specific measurements, design, composition, performance, quality, and general use. A uniform identification that is agreed on is called a standard. There are three sources. We have the international standards, like the International Standards Organization, that is referred to as ISO. Then we have the National or Industrial Standards Body, like South African Bureau of Standards, that is referred to as SAPS. Then we have the business standards. Standardization implies that the characteristics of an item have to comply with a specific minimum acceptable standard, but at the same time, the types, sizes, and grades of an item are limited. Let's look at the advantages of standardization. The advantages of standardization are less stock needs to be kept when a standard item is suited to many applications. Larger quantities may be ordered at a time, negotiating larger quantity discounts. Total cost of ownership for the final customer will be reduced. Inspection and quality control of incoming goods are facilitated or even eliminated. The possibility of mistakes and doubts when orders are placed is largely eliminated. The firm's competitive position may improve. Cheaper standard items may reduce the cost of final products. Standard items are more readily available. Standardization may ensure better labor relations. Global logistics costs can be reduced. Then we have different ISO standards. For instance, we have ISO 9000, which is about fundamentals and vocabulary. ISO 9001, which defines minimum requirements. ISO 9003 is requirements concerning software quality management. ISO 9004, guidelines for performance improvement. ISO 9000 includes quality management systems like customer focus, leadership, involvement of people, process approach, systems approach to management, continual improvement, factual approach to decision making, mutually beneficial relations. ISO 14000 general areas are environmental management systems, environmental auditing, environmental performance evaluation, environmental labeling, life cycle assessment, environmental aspects of standards, terms and definitions. Technical elements again continued. Let's look at the value analysis as an aid for decision on quality. Value analysis as an aid for decisions on quality. Value analysis is the organized, systematic study of material, part, component, or system in which the function of the product or service is compared with the cost, and where lower cost and higher value alternatives are the outputs. There are two goals to this: suitability of design and function, lowest ultimate cost of material. Let's look at the steps in value analysis. We look at who should be responsible for value analysis, then selecting a specific product or item for examination, and value analysis program should be undertaken through 6 phases. The 6 phases are determine the responsibility for value analysis. Here we are looking at representative of functions concerned. Number 2, select a product. So here we are saying it's cost excessive, strong competition and low profit margins. Then 3, execute value analysis. You are gathering information, that is cost of each component, specification, tolerances, functions performed, manufacturing method, consumers' preferences, and others. That's gathering that information. Then you investigate the product. That's still under executing value analysis. In investigating the product, you look at does it contribute value? What costs in relation to it? Features necessary? Cheaper manufacturing method? Standard product? Etc. Then you speculate improvements. Design analysis, price cost analysis, brainstorming, evaluate, and then you test improvements. Then you are evaluating by testing improvements. Then you make recommendation, most suitable alternative. Then implement and follow up. And every now and then you continue improving. Let's look at the description of quality. Quality clearly informs both the purchaser and the supplier of the precise inherent characteristics of the item being bought. Description based on market grades, description based on brand names, description based on commercial standards, description based on inherent specified characteristics, description based on materials and manufacturing characteristics, description based on engineering drawings which are blueprints, description based on samples, description based on a combination of all the methods that I've just mentioned. Quality assurance, when we are looking at how do we control quality, let's look at the general nature of quality control. Quality assurance is aimed at ensuring that the supplier produces acceptable quality. Quality control means that the purchasing firm inspects deliveries on arrival to ascertain that stated quality requirements have been met. What is the purpose for this? One, the purpose is to determine whether the prescribed quality is suitable for the purpose of application. Two, to ensure that the delivered goods comply with the specific quality. The general nature of quality control is you first set standards. These are quality specifications, which might be determined by a sample. Then you record inspection, determine inspection size. Is there going to be no inspection? Is there going to be sample inspection? Is it going to be total inspection? Further inspection. Then explain deviations. Look for reasons for the deviations and report. Then take corrective action. You decide, return entire consignment, return defective products, or negotiate adjustments. Then you make effective measures for preventing deviations. That, ladies and gentlemen, was on our quality. And we are saying supply management jointly with other functional areas has a strategic responsibility in ensuring that customer expectations regarding the quality of goods and services are met or exceeded. Now we are going to chapter 8. Our chapter 8, ladies and gentlemen, is purchasing price determination and cost analysis. What is the importance of purchasing prices? We know that price is an element of value, where we say value is equal to customer benefits minus customer sacrifices, which is what they've bought. Sacrifices refers to price of receiving goods and service. So value is a function of cost. Determining the right price. The price should be in a reasonable proportion to the total manufacturing costs of supply, including provision for a fair profit margin. Determining the price, when we look at a fair price, we say a fair price may be one that is determined by the supplier and the buyer in collaborative effort in finding the required value. The price should be determined by active competition in a competitive market. Competitive prices. If the prices paid for requirements are not competitive, the prices asked for the firm's own goods will also not be competitive. And as such, a business will not survive. If the prices are not competitive, then the business will not survive. Let's look at the cost elements. The cost incurred by the supplier is also of importance in determining a fair price. We look at the direct costs of materials, direct labor costs, indirect manufacturing costs, and profit markup. A markup is when a profit is expressed as a percentage of the cost. Then we look at behavior of cost related to volumes. We have what we call fixed costs. These don't change. They remain the same as a total over the short term, no matter how many products are manufactured or marketed during this period. Variable costs. They increase as a total as production quantities increased, but the cost per product remain the same, no matter how many products are produced. Then we have what we refer to as semi-variable costs. These have got both the fixed and variable element. These diagrams here depict the variable costs, total and unit costs, of fixed costs. We look at fixed and variable costs. We look at fixed and variable costs and the total costs, and look at the component that is the fixed cost. Then let's look at the different market forms and price determination. Competition differs according to the different markets, and this in turn influences price determination by suppliers. The nature of the market structure is determined by the number of purchasers as well as sellers. Pure competitive market is sometimes referred to as the perfect market. This one is characterized by the large numbers of buyers, that is purchasers, and sellers, who are suppliers. It is impossible for individual purchasers and suppliers to influence market prices. The products are standard. Price lists and catalog prices usually produce the accepted price level. Then we have what we call an oligopoly. An oligopoly is a small number of suppliers offering homogeneous or very similar products, characterized by price agreements. The purchaser may use this market structure to its advantage in one of the following ways. The purchaser may exploit price differences with substitute products during negotiation, persuade the supplier to differentiate its product by means of better service, secret agreements. Then we have monopoly or a monopolistic competition, which is sometimes referred to as an imperfect, competition. The only supplier of a product that is unique is in almost all aspects, making it difficult to find suitable substitutes. Purchaser can improve price negotiations by following a deliberate plan to improve supplier relations, develop supplier, negotiating for better conditions, reporting the matter to the competition board. Then, price determination for different types of a product. We have raw materials. What are raw materials? Certain commodities are bought on world commodity markets, have fixed prices. Raw materials are those that are used in the production processes. So I'm saying certain commodities bought on world commodity markets have fixed prices. Services, delivery times, and other key variables are issues for negotiation. Then we have special items. Custom ordered, specific to the purchasing organization, that is tender and negotiate. Standard production items. Prices are determined by quotation or by means of published prices in catalogs and price lists. Items of small value. Costs do not justify effort to check price prior to purchase. Then capital goods. Management team participation. Capital goods are those fixed goods, production goods like non-current assets, like motor vehicles in the company. There is a lot of tendering and negotiating. Then purchasing of services, general type of service like quotations or tenders, specialized skills, that is careful negotiation, items for resale. Prices are largely influenced by the marketing perception of what can be sold and at what prices the market will be willing to buy. Unique purchasing and pricing methods. Then let's look at the price analysis to determine prices. Price analysis to determine prices. Price analysis is the process of comparing supplier prices against external benchmarks without direct knowledge of supplier's cost. A standard or benchmark with which to compare a quoted price. Methods of comparison or benchmarks are competing tenders, quotations or offers, existing and stable market prices, historical data or reliable trends, published prices or indices, government-regulated prices, internal estimates, value analysis. Then collecting information for determining purchasing prices. Where do you get this information? You can get the information from published price lists, printed catalogs, and electronic catalogs. You can get it from quotations, commodity exchanges, price indices, record keeping, EDI systems, internet connections. Then you have to understand supplier pricing models, which is we have the price volume model, where the supplier analyzes the market to find the volume of sales combined with a specific price per unit that will ensure maximum profit. An increased volume may imply that the direct cost is spread over more units so that the cost per unit may be reduced. A lower price at higher volumes may therefore increase profits. Then understanding supplier pricing models, like we have what is called a market penetration model. This is mostly used in launching a new product. Prices are very low to increase sales and to discourage competition. Rationale is to maximize long-term profits by capturing a large share of the market as early as possible. Then we have what is called a market skimming model. That is creaming off the profits as early as possible. Prices are set to achieve a high profit on each unit. Innovative products aimed at recovering developmental costs before competition steps in. Then we have what we call the supplier pricing models, like revenue pricing model. Focus on obtaining sufficient revenue to pay for operating costs rather than on profit. retain skilled labor, and improve capacity utilization in times when there is a downturn in markets. Understanding pricing models, we are saying this, what is called promotional pricing model. Attractive pricing for individual products to enhance the sales of an associated product line. Then we have a market price level, where determining there is determining the highest price that will still be lower than the price offered by competitors. Then, setting objectives for price determination. We look at the budget objectives. Material budgets set costs, price objectives related to two variables: the expected quantities of materials required by the enterprise and the prices of the materials. Then, standard prices are based on price forecasts and on the informed opinions of purchasing personnel regarding future price trends. Then, setting objectives for price determination, again, we will be looking at cost reduction strategies. That is reducing the actual cost of what is required, or long-term purchasing agreements, joint cost reduction programs, or commitment by supply management to purchase the supplier's capacity. And then we have the price indices as objectives for price determination. Price indices for commodities are essential indicators of how market prices of specific commodities change when compared with the price in a predetermined base period. We have internal indices and we have market indices. Let's look at the different approaches to determining prices. We have price determination according to the prevailing market prices. Then we have price determination by competition in the market. Then price determination by means of negotiation. Let's look at cost analysis as a method of determining prices. So, establishing whether suppliers are offering prices that comply with the prerequisite of a fair price. We have suppliers' cost-based pricing models, where we have the cost markup pricing model. I explained what markup was earlier. Supplier estimates the cost and then adds a markup percentage representing the aimed for profit. Then we have margin pricing. Margin usually is a percentage of sales. So profit, e.g. 25%, is a desirable profit target. Then we have the rate of return pricing model, specific desired rate of return of financial investments. Then we have what we call the learning curve, collaborative cost management, where there is target costing, cost saving sharing pricing. Then this that you see here is a learning curve that says when employees get more and more experienced, they produce more. Techniques assisting in cost price analysis, as I said, one of them is a learning curve. This is a relationship between the number of units produced and the number of labor hours required to produce them. Excuse me. Labor becomes more skilled and efficient with the repeated handling of equipment and materials. Labor costs are reduced as workers become more skilled and efficient, and this is what is referred to as the learning curve. cost price analysis, break-even analysis. What is a break-even analysis? It is to get an indication of the product volumes producing either a profit or a loss for an enterprise. A break-even point is where the total cost intersects with the revenue, where your total costs are equal to your revenue. We call that a break-even. As indicated on the diagram there, you note there is a profit and a loss, where those two, where there is the revenue and the costs, where they cross, that is what is called a break-even point. Hedging prices. A hedging contract involves a simultaneous purchase and sale in two different markets, which are assumed to operate so that a loss in one will be offset by an equal gain in another. That's a hedging contract. You are selling in two different markets, which are assumed to operate so that a loss in one will be offset by an equal gain in another. So we have just gone through chapter 8, unit 8, purchasing price determination and cost analysis. So price is but one element of value, and delivering satisfactory customer value to internal and external customers is the ultimate aim of the supply chain. Now we are going to 9. 9 is quality and inventory management. Quality and inventory management. According to your study guide, we have 8 outcomes. The 8 outcomes should be covered in the slides that I'm going to go through. Traditional approach to efficient inventory management seeks to balance between a large inventory capable of continuously providing needs and a small inventory, keeping costs as low as possible. Contemporary management philosophy holds that efficient management of the supply pipeline may obviate the need for inventories altogether. Let's look at the reasons for holding inventory. Why hold inventory? We hold inventory for continuity in production and marketing. We hold inventory, cost savings and hedging against price uncertainties, protection against supply uncertainties, purchasing costs, importance of keeping inventory to the minimum. Why is it important to keep inventory to the minimum? Need for inventory will differ from one field of business to another. Average inventory levels are always 20% of total costs, and inventory holding costs will be 20% of the amount invested in inventory. Let's look at the categories of inventory. We have production inventories, we have maintenance inventories, we have processing inventories, we have final products inventories. Let's look at inventory costs. We have capital costs, we have storage costs, we have inventory risk. When we look at capital costs, we are looking at the amount that has been invested in inventory. Storage costs, we are looking at when you have your own warehouse. We are looking at property tax. We are looking at rented warehouse. And then inventory risk. We are looking at the risk of having the inventory becoming obsolete, meaning that it might not be used, and that becomes a loss. The damage, theft, and inventory insurance. Those are the inventory costs. Please be conversant in those. They are divided into three: capital costs, storage costs, and inventory risk costs. Let's look at the basic inventory concepts. Again, we'll continue with our inventory costs. We have talked about those three. Then we say inventory holding or carrying costs. The cost of financing the inventory, whether by means of interest paid or borrowed capital or interest lost on equity. The cost of storage, that is the cost of having a warehouse, such as maintenance costs and property tax. Costs of handling inventory, such as equipment or remuneration to personnel. Insurance costs, to reduce the risk of loss due to damage or theft. Technical as well as economic depreciation of inventory, which may bring about inventory losses, that is costs. This is particularly important when products are perishable or become obsolete. Then we have ordering costs. Administrative costs. Ordering costs include administrative costs for placing the order, follow-up costs, costs of receipt and quality control, as well as payment of the supplier's invoice. The number of orders placed is directly related to ordering costs. Then we have costs of inventory shortages, which can sometimes be referred to, is referred to sometimes as stock out costs. Costs of inventory stock shortages are difficult to calculate. Costs of lost orders and customer goodwill. Costs of shortages often relate to the following factors: increased transport costs, e.g. air freight as opposed to sea freight, increased adjustment or overtime, so-called back orders, Then costs in the plant, additional administrative costs or costs caused by the disruption of a plant production schedule, costs resulting from cancelled orders. We have said costs of inventory shortages or stock out costs are very difficult to calculate, but these would include costs of lost orders and customer goodwill, costs of shortages often relating to the following factors: increased transport costs, for instance, when you have to use air instead of the sea to try and make up, increased adjustment or overtime, so-called back orders, costs in the plant, additional administrative costs or costs caused by the disruption of plant production schedule, costs resulting from cancelled orders. Then let's look at what is called the ABC classification of inventory. This is where you classify inventory according to, its importance. Inventory is an inventory catalog, a systematic record system, an inventory list that uses coding or stock items to create an orderly information source containing information such as the stock item number, inventory levels, the price of each inventory item. Then the ABC classification of inventory is sometimes referred to as the Pareto analysis. Is primarily aimed at providing management with information on the importance of the different inventory items in terms of monetary value. Inventory may be classified into three categories in relation to the rand demand or the average investment inventory. You see, category A comprises 10%, then we have B 20%, then we have C which might be 70%. And again, we are saying, we are looking at the cumulative percentage of total consumption values and the cumulative percentage of total number of items. You find that from the 10%, items, you get more value, which is 70%. From the 20% items, you get, you continue, you get about 20%. And from about 70%, you only get 10% of the rand value. Inventory planning is primarily involved with decisions on the quantity of inventory to be purchased, as well as the correct time for making such purchases. Inventory control monitors and evaluates inventory activities in such a manner that these activities are performed according to accepted criteria and standards to achieve inventory objectives. Then, inventory timing. We are looking at planning and control for independent demand items. Then let's look at inventory timing, which is a periodic reorder system. That's why we come up with concepts like economic order quantity, reorder level. It's because we want to try and minimize the costs of carrying too much inventory and again balance between carrying too little. This implies that the inventory level of a particular item is reviewed regularly, and based on the inventory level at the time, a decision is then made regarding replenishment. Quantity order is different each time an order is placed. This approach leads to large inventories. So this is continuously reviewed. There is a formula on how you calculate inventory quantity, which is a reorder point. Reorder point is demand per period times lead time plus safety stock. That is reorder point. Then inventory quantity, which is reorder point system, we look at what reorder quantity, why it's important for us to have that. It contributes to the cost of holding inventory. Let's take the inventory costs into consideration. Holding costs increase as the non-on-hand inventory increases. The higher the inventory levels, the fewer the orders that need to be made. And these lower ordering costs. Then we have what is referred to as the economic order quantity. Economic order quantity is the economic order, the right size that you need to order at a time that are at the lowest costs. And this one is always the square root of 2 times the annual demand times the cost of placing an order over H, which is the carrying value of an item, or which is the holding cost. Let's look at the reorder point. We have the economic order quantity. It's calculated by having ordering costs, inventory holding costs, and the total cost as a whole, and order quantity. So we are saying inventory quantity, which is reorder point, is reorder quantity is always 2 CU over H, square root of that, which is 2 times cost of placing an order times annual usage over holding costs square root. Response-based techniques. They provide rapid response to occurrences in the marketplace. There is quick response, which is QR. It minimizes response time to unexpected changes in market tendencies. Then there is continuous replenishment, which is abbreviated CR. Then there is vendor managed inventory, which is VMI. Then there's the supplier replenishes the buyer inventory continuously. That is on continuous replenishment, where the supplier replenishes the buyer's inventory continuously. Then there is the efficient consumer response, which is ECR. This is used mainly in the grocery industry. It requires a close working relationship between suppliers and retail customers. There is the optimal allocation of shelf space, efficient management of product promotions and new product introduction, improved management of product range and assortment, efficient replenishment of inventory between supply chain partners. Please, you should be conversant about what a materials requirement planning is. An MRP system is a computerized information system that integrates the scheduling and control of materials through logically related records, procedures, and decision rules with the master production schedule. Master production schedule is what is it that you are going to be producing, where mostly you will have your forecasted sales, and then which is been brought by because of the orders that have been placed. And these will then lead you into looking at what kind of materials you'll require. So I've said it is the master production schedule into time-phased net requirements for each. An MRP system has orders coming in. The forecast is also taken into consideration. Master production schedule has something to do with what is it that you want to manufacture and when. Then the MRP program, it will be the needs that are required, what materials will be required. So there will be the bill of materials that will be spares. And remember, this is a computerized system. And then the inventory, they will be looking at availability of inventory on order and also looking at the lead time. And then there will be a report on what to order, what to expedite, then production schedule realistic. Is it realistic? Then we look at the materials requirement planning. Starts off, there will be a customer demand, remember, those are our forecasts. Then we look at the impact of global market. It's also to do with the marketing plan. What did we have in our marketing plan? What do we have in our production plan? What is our master production schedule? Then from the master production schedule, what are the materials requirement plans? The capacity requirement plan, do we have enough facilities for that? Is it realistic? If it's realistic, you continue to implement capacity plan, then implement materials purchasing. An RP system is a closed loop in production and materials control. I will give an example of what happens in a materials requirement planning. They've given a bill of materials for a ballpoint pen. First final product starts off is a ballpoint pen, but the first level of assemble will be one refill and one encashment. And under encashment, second level will be the bottom part and top part. And third level will be the top lead and the clip. That is a materials requirement planning. That's what will be needed for one ballpoint. Materials requirement planning system, we look at the influence of the materials requirement planning system on purchasing and supply management. It has got positive influences, forging closer links with suppliers and user departments, a considerable decrease in inventory of purchased parts, fewer outstanding orders, elimination of expediting orders, improvement of accuracy of records and control information, time availability for value analysis, research on purchasing and supplier development, improved accuracy of purchasing planning and scheduling. There is the influence of the MRP system on purchasing and supply management will be, it also has some problems. Remember, before we had talked about the positive influences, that we said the positive influences were forging closer links with suppliers and user departments, a considerable decrease in the inventory of purchased parts, fewer outstanding orders, elimination of expediting orders, improvement of accuracy of records and control information, time availability for value analysis, research on purchasing and supplier development, improved accuracy of purchasing planning, scheduling. Then let's look at the problems. Purchasing quantities are largely inflexible. Lead time have to be short and very reliable. Low inventory levels place greater pressure on the purchasing function. Reliability of purchasing information has a major influence on the success of the MRP system. The MRP system demands a greater degree of expertise regarding production processes and alternative products from buyers. Let's look at MRP2. By converting the MRP system to MRP2.1, more than financial planning has been incorporated. This one now incorporates financial planning. Financial management, purchasing management, and marketing management may be incorporated directly into the MRP2 system. Then let's look at the distribution resource planning. DRP applies MRP principles to service, retail, and distribution operations. It determines customer demand at retail level and provides the upstream chain through wholesale to manufacturers with demand information. Then we have what we call the enterprise resource planning. Enterprise resource planning represents the next and latest generation of MRP2 systems. Management information and business intelligence system that integrates all the business processes of an enterprise and further integrates these internal processes with external processes of upstream suppliers and downstream customers. There is our enterprise resource planning. We're looking at the automotive assembler. We know the first tier is their supplier, where there is the daily calling and the production schedule going to the first tier. And this is facilitated so much by the EDI, which is electronic data interchange, that's e-commerce. And then there's the second tier supplier, who is the supplier's supplier. Again, there's a lot of production there, then there's a lot of exchange of information through EDI and e-commerce. Then from the automotive assembler, which is the focal organization here, after production and final assembly, there's delivery to the dealer. But the demand information is both ways, between the automotive assembler and the dealer. Just in time. JIT is a product-oriented management philosophy. Products of the correct specifications are made available in the correct quantities and at the precise time during manufacturing, as well as to the consumer market. The whole JIT system is designed to eliminate inventories of raw materials and purchased products, sub-assembles and work in process. The whole JIT system is designed to eliminate inventories of raw materials and purchased products, sub-assembles and work in process and inventories of final products ready for marketing to the customer. The JIT system coordinates purchasing with manufacturing, the manufacturing process internally, and the manufacturing with consumer demand, so that inventories of raw materials, work in process, and final products are eliminated. Just in time depends on short and reliable delivery times, high standards, and reliable workers and suppliers. Advantages of JIT purchasing: they lower inventory levels, smaller buffer stocks, short lead times, quality improvement, cost savings. Then the JIT system. This is how it is. The lead time comparison of the JIT system with inventory, with the traditional one, the conventional one. On number one, that's the consecutive steps in conventional purchasing, where there's the description of the needs, then lead time, ordering lead time, suppliers lead time, logistics lead time, receiving and quality control. Traditionally, that will take so long. It will take so long to complete, the lead time is longer. But when it comes to consecutive steps in JIT, we know that there's the Kanban changes, there's the suppliers, there's the logistics, there's receiving. It's finished, it's short. So this one has got a competitive advantage and a time-based competition. Let's look at the symptoms of poor inventory management. This is one of the outcomes that is required in this study guide. It's the last one. It says describe the symptoms of describe the symptoms of poor inventory management. What is it that makes you know that this is poor inventory management? An increase in the number of outstanding orders will show that there is poor inventory management. An increase in the RAND investment in inventory without a definite reason. Differences in inventory turnover, in turnover rates or times at different plants. Inventory turnover is the number of times that stock is replaced. An increase in the number of out-of-stock occurrences. Too much inventory. Excessive increase in inventory holding costs. An increase in obsolete inventory. Then in conclusion of this chapter, we say, despite new developments such as JIT and MRP and the influence of inventory levels brought about by management concepts such as time-based competition, inventory, and the efficient management of inventory holding, efficient management of inventory holding will continue to play a key role in ensuring efficiency in the supply chain. Now, we go to chapter 15, which is the next unit. The next unit, which is study unit 10. Study unit 10 comes from chapter 15. And on your page 131 are your objectives that these slides have attempted to address. We are looking at the purchasing of capital goods, purchasing of capital equipment. That's what we are looking at. The purchasing of capital equipment differs considerably from the purchasing of other goods and services. Capital equipment suppliers need to be delivering technically advanced, reliable facilities and equipment. Suppliers need to employ talented professionals with specialized expertise dedicated to serving their clients to gain mutual competitive advantage. The nature of capital equipment is long-term. The extent of capital equipment is investment. Importance of capital equipment from cost point of view. Let's look at the classification of capital goods. They can be classified in two broad categories: multi-purpose, which is general, or single purpose, which is specialized. The characteristics of purchasing capital equipment is that there is large expenditure, e.g. cranes, fork trucks, cars, and other capital goods is extremely expensive. Non-recurring expenditures, e.g. office equipment usually has a long lifespan, so it is purchased at irregular intervals. Specialized and technical by nature, e.g. when a photocopier is purchased, it has to meet the requirements of all departments from marketing to production. Let's look at the purchasing team. There has to be the size and scope of the capital equipment team. This is there to meet the key objectives, and the key objectives are to determine the necessary specifications, select an adequate supplier, conduct negotiations. There's always a team that comes up, like a cross-functional team that will help in the purchasing of capital equipment. So we are saying to meet key objectives of determining the necessary specifications, selecting an adequate supplier, conducting negotiations, install and maintain equipment, sourcing team needs to be selected and trained. There's a sourcing team that has to be selected and trained. The number of personnel involved depends on the extent of possible adverse consequences. It depends on the purchasing situation. It depends on the size of the enterprise. It depends on the business orientation of the organization. So we are saying does not play a dominant role in the purchasing of capital equipment. It forms part of the team which makes, I should have said, now we are looking at the role of purchasing and supply management in the procurement of capital goods. And I wanted to say this, the purchasing and supply management does not play a dominant role in the purchasing of capital goods. It forms part of the team which makes recommendations on these acquisitions. They provide important input like provision of information, evaluation and selection of suppliers, negotiations with suppliers and contractual conditions, coordination and administration of the purchase, and then specific purchases. Let's look at the factors to be considered in purchasing capital equipment. What are the reasons to procure capital equipment? We want to ensure more capacity. We want to achieve economy in operation and maintenance, to increase productivity, to improve quality, to ensure availability, because organizations are dependent on its use, to save time and or labor costs, for more durability, for safety, pollution, and emergency protection. And let's look at the qualitative considerations in purchasing capital equipment. We look at the reliability of the equipment, flexibility of the equipment, space requirements, safety of the equipment, effect of the quality of end products, durability of the equipment, preference of different departments. The qualitative considerations in purchasing capital equipment are reliability of the equipment, flexibility of the equipment, space requirements, safety of the equipment, effect on the quality of end products, durability of the equipment, preference of different departments. Let's look, those were qualitative. Now let's look at quantitative assessment of capital equipment. When we're looking at quantitative, we are looking at cost of operation, cost of installation, cost of maintenance, and we have the three methods that are quantitative assessment. We have the payback period method, how long it will take you to recoup your money that you invested. We have the net present value method, which is a discounted method of time value for money. Then we have the internal rate of return. I say the quantitative assessment of capital equipment are the cost of operation, cost of installation, cost of maintenance, and we cited the three methods, which were payback method, net present value method, and internal rate of return. Where internal rate of return, where your internal rate of return is the cost at which your cash flows, discounted cash flows, are equal to the amount that you invested. So let's look at purchasing of used capital equipment. You have to consider purchasing or leasing pre-owned capital equipment. The reasons being the cost, and these might be more readily available. There is return on investment. You look at the life cycle, and then compatibility or operational considerations. The precautionary questions that you have to ask on purchasing of used capital goods are: is the history and age of the equipment available? How well has the machine been maintained? Are spares for the machine easily obtainable if necessary? How do the prices of old versus new equipment compare? Are there available and reliable suppliers for used equipment who will be willing to cooperate with the decision to buy it? Are there any special terms and conditions when purchasing used capital equipment? What will the costs be to relocate the equipment? These are all the questions that you have to ask. You have to take precautions on the questions that we just went through. Then when it comes to your considerations of whether to purchase equipment or to lease, we have two types of leases: a financial lease, which is long-term, and an operational lease, which is short-term. The basis for deciding between leasing and purchasing: there are three alternatives to buying new operational equipment. Acquire the assets through leasing, finance the assets by means of lease, hire purchase, or a suspensive sale. Purchase the assets using available cash resources. These are the alternatives that you are looking at. Say the three alternatives to buying new operational equipment is: acquire the assets through leasing, finance the assets by means of loans, hire purchase or suspensive sale, purchase the assets using available cash resources. The basis for deciding between leasing and purchasing, we say again, there are 3 steps involved in choosing between leasing and buying. You calculate, the first step is you calculate the net present cash outflow in the case of buying and of leasing. Determine the operating advantages and disadvantages and financing considerations. Then look at the advantages and disadvantages of leasing and of owning the capital equipment. 2, select the alternative with the lower cash outflow. 3, decide whether the operating benefits of leasing are worth the additional cost. Let's look at the relative merits, which are the advantages of leasing. Leasing provides certainty. It is very convenient from an operating and managerial point of view. It is very flexible in the sense that organizations are not locked into long-term commitments due to capital investments. It provides an organization with financial leverage because leasing typically replaces a large capital outlay with smaller and regular payments. Leasing may increase liquidity and make capital available for more profitable investments. The investment responsibility lies with the lessor. Remember, there's the lessor and the lessee. The lessor is the person that is like the landlord that is giving away the equipment, that is leasing out the equipment. Let's look at the advantages continued. A small initial capital outlay is required. Expert service, advice, and maintenance are often available. The risk of obsolescence is reduced. The lessor may carry out prior testing before an agreement is concluded. Lease payments are tax deductible. Leasing allows an organization to assess equipment over a predetermined period of time. Leasing may serve as a buffer against price increases. It may enhance the financial position of an enterprise because it does not appear as a debt on the balance sheet. It is only a note. It's not a liability. That's why we're saying it does not appear as a debt. The disadvantages. It may be more expensive than other purchasing methods, such as loans. The lessor may sometimes insist on supervising. There is less freedom of use and action. There is no residual value for the lessee. It is sometimes relatively more difficult to make changes or improvements to the equipment under the contract. The equipment may rapidly become obsolete, and then the lessee is bound for the period of the contract. In conclusion, purchasing and supply management should be well informed about its role in purchasing capital goods. That is our chapter 15 that was talking about purchasing of capital goods. Now we come to our last chapter, which is unit 10. Now we are coming to the last unit, which is unit 11, which is purchasing services. What is a service? A service is a process consisting of a series of more or less intangible activities that often take place in interactions between the customer and employees and or physical resources or goods and or systems of the service provider, which are provided as solutions to customer problems. Importance of service procurement. We know that services is the most growing sector, the fastest growing sector. Philosophy of deregulation of previously government-controlled service industries resulted in disbanding of monopolistic protection. Again, it is important because global competition pressures firms to reduce costs. It is important because e-procurement and other sourcing tools make performance of procurement activities more efficient. It is important because global drive of cost reduction results in outsourcing of non-core activities. Limited influence of supply management in the purchasing of some categories of service. Supply management can make a significant contribution to the firm's performance with services buying. Let's look at the differences between buying services and goods. Services are intangible. They are heterogeneous. Simultaneity in service production, they happen at the same time simultaneously. Perishability of services. Entry into the market, that's the differences. Let's look at the guidelines for services purchases. They have a clearly defined scope. They establish a suitable organizational structure. Guidelines for service purchases have a clearly defined scope. Establish a suitable organizational structure. Allocate resources to supply management relative to the importance of services buying. Develop a procedure for supplier selection. Supplier selection and supply base. Develop a performance measurement system for service delivery. The guidelines are: have a clearly defined scope, establish a suitable organizational structure, allocate resources to supply management relative to the importance of services buying, develop a procedure for supplier selection and supply base, develop a performance measurement system for service delivery. Then the core activities in services purchasing. Phase 1 is data collection. You're looking at the sourcing process, deciding on purchasing structure, drafting a statement of work. Under the statement of work, you have the performance statement of work, functional statement of work, design statement of work, level of effort statement of work. Then we have phase 2, which is the actual procurement. Determining the supply base, negotiations, contract development. Under contract development, you are looking at the performance standards, changes, behavioral issues, subcontractors, dispute resolution. Then on phase 3, which is now the implementation and follow-up phase, looking at monitoring the results of services buying, developing a policy of compliance to service contract, performance towards suppliers, contract administration, that is follow-up, quality control and supply evaluation, payment, and records, keeping records. Then let's look at purchasing of professional services. Excuse me. Purchasing professional services. Conduct an internal audit to determine the current cost and use of professional services. Define the scope of each project. Ensure that services are satisfactory. Methodology should be in place to gauge performance. Buy-in into policies and practices for purchasing professional services is essential. And let's look at the purchasing of legal services. You should keep abreast of aspects of the law that influence specific operations. Seek and take legal advice before a problem arises. Determine best suppliers of legal advice and/or services. Explain non-litigious avenues like arbitration to resolve disputes. Control legal costs by accurately defining scope, negotiating for the best value, and designing an adequate performance evaluation structure. Then let's look at purchasing, marketing, and advertising services. That's the ability of a supplier to work closely with the marketing and public relations departments is crucially important. Suppliers must be fully informed and understand precisely what is to be promoted. You want to purchase your marketing and advertising services. What is it that you want to promote? You should be very clear about what you want to promote. Teamwork between internal functions and service provider is very important. Do not assume that supplier has all the creative talent. Involve employees too, especially those in that department. Advertising and marketing involves complicated supply chains. Now let's look at purchasing of transport services. The variables that we have in transportation are total cost, speed, reliability, capability, and accessibility. They are the ones that you are considering. Total cost. It includes all costs that can be associated with a particular transportation contract. Optimizing cost by trading off cost elements is extremely important. You are trying to trade off which cost elements you can, compromise. Speed refers to the time required by the contractor to perform a specific task. Then reliability relates to the ability to meet customer expectations continuously and has therefore the quality of the transport service as a core element. Then capability refers to the ability in terms of capacity, staff, equipment, and management acumen to perform the service contract in time, at the desired quality, and within the budget. Accessibility relates to the ease with which a service supplier can be accessible to the various user divisions, plans which may be spread out geographically, and also the ability of the supplier to render a service where it is required. In conclusion, to our last slides, we are saying purchasing services afford supply management, the opportunity to develop new applications for skills, may prove conclusively that purchasing and supply management has adapted well to challenges of global environment. Much research is still required. Training in new skills and ability to break out the functional silo are prerequisites if purchasing and supply experts are to play a role in purchasing services. Change in the domestic and global business environment allows purchasing and supply management to play an increasingly important role in the overall strategy of supply of business organizations. That is the end. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't see anyone with a question. If there is any question, please, I'm free to answer those questions. If there is any question, please feel free to ask me the questions. I'm ready for your questions. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? If there is nothing, thank you very much. Come to the end